Hey guys, what's going on? Bobby here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the AATA Network podcast. And yes, it has been a while since we have had a new episode. I will dive into that here in a moment. But first off, I just want to remind everybody that the ATA Network podcast can be found on these following platforms. We are on the ATA Network YouTube channel at youtube.com/ATA Network. We're on Apple Podcast, Google Play Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and Libsyn. If we are missing your favorite podcast platform, let us know, and we will get our show out on those airwaves. Also, make sure you follow the ATA Network. Follow me on all the social medias. It's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All of that is at ATA Network. Also, you can help support the show and support the ATA Network by checking out our Spreadshirt store at shop.spreadshirt.com/ATA Network. And finally, if I discuss any links, anything that we need to connect you to for more information on anything that we discuss in this episode, you can check out the link dump at bobbykrug.com/podcast. So for today's episode of the podcast, it is just me, myself, and I, and you. And we're going to talk about some of the non-racing stuff that's happened over the past couple months, just kind of the general college and work stuff that I've been doing. And then we're going to talk about the first two events of the karting season. We had the season opener at the Gateway Kartplex for the Ignite Series at the Gateway Kartplex, and then we had the season opener for the Ignite Challenge Series at Whiteland Raceway Park in Whiteland, Indiana. So first off, as you guys know, I was going to college at SIUE. We transitioned to online classes because of the whole COVID-19 situation. We weren't able to open up the Gateway Kartplex until I try and remember when we opened up the Gateway Kartplex, but there was a good span of a couple weeks where all I was really doing was just taking online classes, and it was when COVID was really, at its peak, and I essentially just spent most of my time at home and just working on my online classes and writing papers left and right and trying to get everything that I could to get SIUE accomplished my last semester, get it out of the way, get my degree, and move on. And I'm happy to announce through the podcast, if you follow me on the social medias, you probably have already heard this, but I did graduate SIUE with a mass comm degree and a business degree, and in my final semester, I also made the dean's list. So that's cool to finally have the college stuff out of the way, and the little bit of free time that I have, I've been going through and just job searching, trying to find something in video production or marketing, something that not only necessarily the job, the job duties that I would be doing for a company, but also trying to pay attention to the companies that I want to work for. Obviously, I think my dream job that people, ask me, what, if you could do anything, for the rest of your life in the video production scheme of the, what I do, what would you want to do? And I think a dream job for me would be traveling the IndyCar circuit or the NASCAR circuit, doing video production stuff for Fox Sports or NBC or another production company like that, or even in-house with NASCAR Productions or IndyCar media. So something like that would be the dream job, but the odds of me getting a job like that right out of college are pretty slim. So I've been looking at a bunch of different opportunities, some part-time stuff, maybe even, some of the local sports stuff, local Fox Sports Midwest, or, things of that sort without getting too much into it. But right now, my work that I do now, I work at the Gateway Kartplex. One of the co-hosts of the ATA Network podcast, Danny Odell, used to work side by side with me at the Gateway Kartplex. Danny was the mechanic, the race director at the Gateway Kartplex, kind of like, if you want to think, the outside manager, if you want to think about it like that. And then I was kind of the secondhand man on that kind of stuff. I more so focused in on the social media and commentating on iDrive rental kart races and the Super Comp Sunday races. But since then, Danny has moved on to a different opportunity, working at a different job. He still does some race directing stuff for the private kart series, but that has basically transitioned me to being kind of the outside guy, and we've hired some new people at the Gateway Kartplex. So these past couple weeks, we've had a lot of customers. Kartplex has really been booming, and I've been working as kind of the outside manager, setting up rental carts, fixing rental carts, doing that kind of stuff that I typically would just watch Danny do or kind of assist him with, not actually take the lead on. So it's been kind of I don't want to say a struggle, but it's been a hard curve in my change in what I've been doing for my current job, while also trying to, peek my nose around. Obviously, I just graduated college. I really want to try finding a job. That's something, close to what I actually got a degree in. But for now, in this tough time with the coronavirus situation, there's still a lot of stuff that's locked down. So it makes it difficult for me as a recent grad to find a job that, is something that I want to be interested in. I don't want to jump at the first video production gig that I can find. I would go through job search sites like Indeed, or even LinkedIn's got stuff now. And there's companies that make Windows and stuff like that. And they're obviously looking for social media managers and stuff like that. I don't connect very well to a window manufacturer, but if I see something that's like an IndyCar race team, or even something in the tech industry, something that I'm interested in, I want to be able to relate with the company, not just the job position. So that's kind of the non-racing side of what my life's been looking like. Besides that, not much has been going on. On the YouTube side of everything, I was doing a lot of live streaming. Obviously now with the world, and I don't want to say the world kind of going back to normal, because we're still really far away from normal. 2020 has been really wild, and I don't even have to explain it. I think everybody kind of knows what I mean by that. But it's been nothing but go for me as far as my job and kart racing and everything. So there's been not a lot of live streams, but if you've been watching on the YouTube channel, you've seen my race day vlogs, my kart reveals, stuff like that. So it's been wild. It's been really, really, really wild. So taking the turn, looking into the first two karting events of the season is what I will now jump into. We 2 weekends ago, or 3 weekends ago actually, we kicked off the Ignite series at the Gateway Kartplex, and that event we ran in the regular direction. It was a normal day race. It was a really hot, humid, sunny day, and there was no worse weather condition to start the series out on. Usually we'll start the season early April, and it's pretty mild temperatures, nothing too insane. But starting it off in June, in the heat of the summer, it was over 100-degree heat index for sure. I think it was probably 105, 110 heat index, and we didn't start out the day extremely strong. We were actually P7 in practice number 1. P4 in practice number 2. We didn't really get a good qualifying lap either. We started P7, and we pretty much struggled. In the pre-final, we had 10 laps to try to gain any spots that we could. Just essentially being on the inside line, starting P7, we were able to gain a spot early on in the race, and then Nick Todenhop tried making a pass on a guy in a wrong spot, slowed him up, and I was able to get by him down the backstretch. Gained 2 spots over 10 laps. Was not a great race for us in the pre-final. So we started 5th for the final. In the first lap of the final, I tried making a pass on Adam Kreppen that should have never been made on the exit of North Pole, but in the heat of the moment, I was pretty ticked off about it. I thought I was clearly to the inside. Well, actually, I guess it was technically the outside of the turn. I thought he would have saw me, so I kind of thought he just chopped me. So it kind of pissed me off, and some people handle their anger a little bit differently when they drive, but for me, when I get pissed, that just kind of helps me focus a little bit more. It kind of just clears my mind, and now I'm only focused on one thing, and I got to pass the guy that just essentially took me out, although that's not what happened, but that's the mindset that I had. So started 5th in the pre-final, and then with that first lap incident, I went back to P7 as I crossed the line for lap number 1. I started working my way back, trying to get a good run, good momentum. Got past the 2 spots that I lost early on in the race. And then I got past Adam Kreppen down in the North Pole turns. And then by the time that I got around Adam, I was kind of looking at the flag stand, trying to see, how many laps we have left. And then about that time, we got cross flags. And I'm sitting in P4. And Evan Stammer was running this race. Evan Stammer been racing Ignite karts for almost as I think he's one of the longest Ignite drivers at the Kartplex since it started. He's won so many junior championships. First year and senior, he won the championship. He's actually moving on right now, trying to race cars and things of that sort. So really talented driver. He was leading the race, and then there was a pretty rough battle for second place between Eric Lodicki and Trevor Egemeyer. So when I got the cross flags, there was still a pretty decent sized gap for me to get to the podium. So I just kept trying to stay with the momentum that I had built up and tried to put my head down and just try to keep running solid laps. And I was actually able to hear Keith Scharf, general manager of the Kartplex, who does the commentary for the Ignite series. Since I'm racing, I can't commentate, obviously. I heard him say that I thought I heard him say my name in purple, which purple in the racing lingo, when you look at lap times going purple, that means you just, you're the fast guy right now. You're running the fastest lap times. So once I heard that, then I kind of just kept going with the pace that I was going. And then Lodicki and Egemeyer, I think Egemeyer tried making a pass on Lodicki and it didn't work out and slowed them both up. I was able to get Egemeyer on the exit of the North Pole going to the 90-degree turn. And then I just kept the momentum going. And then that same lap, or that following lap rather, after we crossed the start-finish line, was able to get to the inside of Lodicki in turn number 2, and he was able to stay with me for a little bit, and we were catching Evan Stommer, but the white flag came out, and I just didn't have enough time to get to Stommer. I think, granted, we had 3 laps maybe or so. I would have got to his back bumper, but getting around him and securing the lead and trying to win the race from Evan would have been a really tough challenge, but I think we definitely had the speed to get to him. So I finished second. Stommer took the first win of the season in the Ignite series of the Gateway Kartplex, and then Trevor was able to get around Eric. I don't know if it was after it wasn't after I passed Eric. It was actually a couple laps after that, when the lap counts were like 2 to go or something like that. I think Trevor was able to get around him. So Trevor finished third. So that was the podium for that race. And it was one of those situations where, I had spent most of the day, like I said, P7 in practice 1, P7 in qualifying. I just thought we didn't have a really good setup, but we just weren't able to get really good lap times in practice 1, and in qualifying we were kind of stuck in traffic, and it just wasn't an ideal situation. So, and we were making a little bit of adjustments, nothing too insane. We were doing some gear adjustments in the practice sessions, trying to find the right gearing for the track, and then we made a significant tire pressure adjustment for the races, and that's really, I think, what helped us out the most. So still trying to learn, everything. The track changes, every year. The surface wears out, so you're dealing with a different track every year, and when you change the layouts, then you've got another added layer of trying to figure out what you need to do to be fast. So that was the first race in the Ignite series of the Gateway Kartplex.
What's that like? Looking for a fun podcast with some variety and crazy stories? I'm John, and on my show, I feature people who do interesting things, and I want to know, what's that like? I've had comedians, race drivers, ghost hunters, tornado chasers, world travelers, and more. Check out What's That Like on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn, and follow our community with bonus content on Facebook. If you know someone who does something people might want to know more about, let me know. I always need more interesting people to bring on the show and ask them, what's that like?
So now moving on from the season opener race at the Gateway Kartplex to now talking about the most recent karting weekend that I had, the season opener race at Whiteland Raceway Park in Whiteland, Indiana, for the Ignite Challenge Series. Now, the Ignite Challenge Series is a little bit different than the Ignite Series that I run at the Gateway Kartplex. That series, the Gateway Kartplex one, is club track specific. So all the races are going to be ran at the Gateway Kartplex. We do run different track layouts, but the Ignite Challenge Series is cool because you'll travel to different karting venues in the Midwest that have the Ignite program. So you'll visit Whiteland, and you'll visit a couple other tracks. You'll go up to Autobahn in Joliet, Illinois, Midstate Kart Club in Springfield, Illinois. Some really cool karting tracks in the Midwest, but the season opener was at Whiteland, and this is the first time that there's been a Challenge Series race new for 2020 was Whiteland. It's deemed America's oldest kart track. And reading off of IndianaLandmarks.org, It was established in 1958, and it is believed to be the oldest consecutively operated kart track in America. It's been a testing ground for professional drivers, including Tony Stewart and John Andretti. When the weekend worked out for me was I traveled down to Whiteland on Friday to run the club race there that night to try to get some, experience running the track. We ran a different layout Friday night than we ran on Saturday, which I wasn't aware of, and I don't think a lot of the people that signed up for it were aware of until about that same week. Right before we left. So it was worth it. Definitely. It was both tracks were really cool technical tracks and really fun to run. The Friday night track I didn't like as much as the Saturday track. Friday you ran a little bit of a higher gear because there was a lot more tighter corners, harder braking zones. And then the track on Saturday was a really fast track. I mean, there was a hairpin, a really tight right-hander, and besides that, everything else was pretty much wide open turns. There was a bit of the track where, I don't know if there's a technical name for it, but essentially after you go past the start-finish line on the track that we ran Saturday, you go through this left-hand corner. You could hit it at full throttle, but I was finding myself kind of giving it a little bit of a lift to set the kart into that corner. And then you're pretty much full speed through this backstretch, but the backstretch is nothing but straight. You got a full speed left-hand corner, then there's a curbing on the right for a right-hand corner that you clip off that, but there's a lot of people that were kind of kicking up dirt because they were, you're trying to make it as straight as possible, so you're finding yourself going off track a little bit. And then you go into the what makes Whiteland, I guess, a little bit famous. Probably one of the most cool corners of Whiteland is the banked corner, and then you pretty much take a deep dive downhill down into this hairpin corner. So that was a really fun track, the Saturday layout. And then on Friday, like I said, it was a lot more tighter. You ran it actually in a backwards direction, I think is what it was called. This was track number 54 was the configuration number, and then Saturday was the original number 1 layout. And the Friday night race didn't go ideally for me. And if you haven't seen it, check out the link dump. You'll find down in the link dump, I'll post the video that I posted for the Ignite Series race at the Gateway Carplex, and then the video that I posted for my weekend at Whiteland. But anyways, the Friday night race was not great. I wasn't actually expecting this, but there was only one practice session. The Gateway Carplex runs like anywhere between like 2 to 3 practice sessions. So you get enough practice to last you a really long time when you do a race at the Gateway Carplex. So I was not used to Whiteland's schedule where they literally only had one practice. You pill drawed for your starting spot for a pre-final, and then you went out for the final. So you had three total sessions where I was originally used to running 3 practice sessions. So you pretty much had to figure out your setup pretty quick. We were P6 in the first practice. We made a gear change. I think we added some teeth. For the pre-final, we pretty much just sat in limbo through the pre-final. We didn't really make up any ground. We were just kind of stuck. I mean, there were some guys that fell off the pace early on and didn't really want to go on the start. So we went back a couple spots, but then we made up the spots. So then we pretty much just finished in the same spot that we started. We finished P6. And then going for the final race, I was able to make up a couple spots early on in the first lap, and then going into, I believe, either the second or the third lap, made a really dumb move trying to pass a guy on the inside. That wasn't clear, wasn't there. He didn't know I was there. He came down on me. We both went off track. He went backwards off track. I went sliding through the grass and basically went to almost last place. Got a 5-second penalty for taking the guy out. That guy retired from the race. And I fought my way back through the field and finished 6th. So P6, and P6. So 6 was Friday night at Whiteland, which kind of left me a little deflated. I didn't feel like that. I figured that if I was going to go out and win a race at Whiteland, not trying to foreshadow anything, I figured if I was going to win a race, it was going to be the club race, because I know there was a couple good drivers like Eric Lodicki, Trevor Eggemeyer, names that I've mentioned just before, talking about the Gateway Carplex, that I figured if those guys weren't running the club race that night, that, I would have a really good shot at winning the club race, but the challenge would be a little bit more of a challenge. So I didn't feel like I was going to be very competitive going into the next day, the following day, running the double feature Ignite Challenge. So you get 3 practice sessions, you get your qualifying, and then you do 2 feature races, and they both feature races are counted towards the total points. So you get 2 races at every track that the challenge goes to. So I started the day off, went in the 3 practice sessions, I went P5 to P4 to P2, and I was going in the right direction. And there was the competition. I don't want to say the competition was low in the challenge, but there was a lot of drivers that I had already beat, in previous racing, or people that I never raced before that were just kind of towards the back of the pack. There was really only one driver, and his name's Eric Fagan, and he, I guess, has won a couple national championships and some other series and stuff like that. He doesn't necessarily run the Ignite kart. He's more of like an open Briggs kind of driver. He actually was just coming out just to have fun, and he was doing really good. He was still he was at least anywhere between 3 to 6 tenths faster than the rest of the field. So when I finished second in the 3rd practice, it was kind of like, all right, so I'm the best of the rest at this point. So we'll just have to wait and see how this all works out. But we were going the right way with setup in the practices, and I was really loving the track, like I said. But then I kind of also got deflated again, because when we moved into qualifying, I just was never able to hit a really good lap. I ran into some traffic, and then I mess up. If you mess up one corner on this track, since it's so momentum based, that you would lose easily 3 or 4 tenths. So one of the last corners before you get to the start finish line, you're going through a really long right hand corner, and then it's a really tight, almost like I don't want to call it might have been like a hairpin corner, I guess you could call it, but it's a really hard braking zone, and then you got to try doing your best to get back in the gas as quick as possible to get the best run that you can. And I specifically remember looking down at the micron and going down the straightaway and being up 3 or 4 tenths, thinking that I was on a really good flyer lap, because I knew the ballpark of the time zone that I needed to run in to get a really good qualifying lap in. And then I went into that tight right-hand corner right before the start-finish line, and I overshot it and then lost all the time that I was up. So we qualified 5th, and I wasn't very happy about that. Wasn't very proud. So the drivers that I had in front of me in qualifying, it was Eric Fagan, Matt Chubb, which I haven't talked about Matt Chubb, but Matt Chubb was solid in qualifying. He started 2nd, so he had to try to keep Eric Fagan honest. And then in the 2nd row, it was Eric Lodicki and Kayla Carlson. Kayla Carlson, she was really strong. So I was kind of, I didn't really do what I thought I was going to do in the practice, but I've also got some pretty strong competition in front of me. So let's try to see if we can get a podium out of this. And that was kind of my mindset, was trying to shoot for a podium. So on the start of the race, I was on the inside line, the preferred line. Outside line didn't get a really good run. I was able to get to the inside of Kayla Carlson going into turn 1. No problem, got to 4th, and then I believe it was in lap number 1 after we got back around, going right before that sharp right-hand corner before start-finish line. I was able to get a really good run out of the corner, able to get to the inside of Eric Lodicki, take away the preferred line from him, get clear of him. And then at the end of this long backstretch that I call, going down into the hairpin corner, Eric Fagan, who I guess is more used to the soft tires, going by what he told me, he's more used to the soft tires. So then when he got up on the brakes to try to slow up for the hairpin corner with the hard tires, he just locked him up. He locked him up. He I guess just wasn't used to it. So then he went pretty much 180 degree and was rolling backwards up the hill. Matt Chubb was really close to him and went high on the corner, which made him go all the way back to, I believe, 4th or 5th, something like that. Me being in 3rd place at the time after passing Lodicki and Carlson, I just went to the inside. I didn't really even understand what had happened in front of me, until I got past, and I was like, you always look at the corner coming up. You go through the corners and you're always looking ahead. You never want to, look right in front of you. You're always thinking about your next move. So I had already, thought about my braking zone and thought about hitting the apex of the corner, and I did it. I didn't really, I didn't think about the crash when it was happening. I didn't freak out, lock up because I saw carts wrecking. I just hit the corner and went through it. And then when I was going into the next corner, I just realized in my mind, I'm like, I I don't get me wrong, but I think I'm leading this race right now, and this can only go. I can only go back from here. So all I did at that point after I got to the lead, I was thinking it was like a practice session. I'd want to go out there and don't try to overextend yourself. Don't try to run qualifier lap times. Go out there and be consistent. And if I'm consistent, no one's going to be able to get a good enough run to get by me. Because obviously Eric Fagan, and I didn't know this at the time, but he went to the very back of the pack. And he was still able at the very end of the race to drive all the way up to P4. So that's an impressive feat in itself. But I still had the guys behind me like Lodicki, like Carlson, and then eventually Matt Chubb that I needed to worry about. But it was one of those things. It's like I started leading the laps and I started keep going at it. And then I got cross flags. And at this point, I'm just thinking in my mind, like, when am I going to screw this up? The only time that I've been a leader of a race and lost the lead and just flopped on a race was No Chicane 2018 when I lost the lead to Gage Rucker and Ryan Bettenhausen. And then after I got off the track, I was just so defeated and just so upset that I was crying in my post-race interview. So I was expecting another situation like that. So I kept looking behind me through the hairpin corners to kind of see what drivers were behind me and if they were gaining on me or not. And the only driver that I could consistently see was Matt Chubb. And I was pretty convinced that Matt Chubb was second place this entire race. But after I got off the track, after I crossed the start-finish line and won the race, and I got congratulated by Eric Lodicki, who was right behind me, I never actually looked directly behind me and realized that Eric Lodicki was on my bumper for like the majority of the race. So every time that I would go through the hairpin corners and look and kind of peek to the inside to kind of see who was back there, I never realized that Eric Lodicki was there. I was convinced that Chubb was second place. So I don't know what would have happened if I would have seen that Lodicki was on my bumper the entire time. I might have made the mistake, might have lost the lead, but I didn't do it. And I'm also very happy that Eric didn't try making a dirty move. I mean, he tried passing me in a corner once, and I tried giving him a little bit of a room. I gave him probably 3/4, half of a cart lane on the inside because I saw the nose a little bit, but I wasn't going to like look over and actually give him like I see you there. So I think he got up on the curb a little bit, slowed up, and I was able to get a pretty good runaway. And then he really reeled me back up in the last lap, but went across the line and I won my first ever Ignite race. And what better place to do it than one of the oldest kart tracks in the country? And it was really cool. And I was actually thinking in my mind, as the lap counts went down, I thought in my mind, man, the title of the video is going to be pretty cool. I'm going to like winner in Whiteland, W's, alliteration. That's going to be real cool. So it's weird the things that crossed my mind when I was leading the race, but I didn't try overreacting, didn't try overthinking it. Just wanted to act like it was a practice session, and I just wanted to be consistent because I knew that if I was going to freak out, that I would have definitely lost it. So went across the line, won the race, and I had a lot of great people come up to me and congratulate me. The elders, Sweeney's, obviously all the people at the Margay tent, all the people that have backed me. My good buddy Jacob Wiseman was there, one of my friends from college, the other co-host of the podcast. He was there doing video stuff for me. Zach Buchanan was vlogging. So I was able to get a lot of good different, angles of it. Eric Lodicki had a GoPro on, and you can see all that on the vlog. That's up on the ATA Network YouTube channel. So, and then I cried in that interview as well because, and I guess this is kind of the big thing that, you might see me crying in the thing. And I know I got a little bit of slack from Greg, and Greg's like, I won X amount of kart races, and I never cried after winning a kart race. And I'm sure that there's other people out there. I know that I've heard from people that, got choked up winning a race recently, that they came up to me and they told me, that I tried not crying because, it's just a club race. It's not a big deal. It's not like you went out there and you won the Indy 500. It's just a club race. But the reason that it meant so much to me to finally win at Ignite, just because it's storybook the odds that I've faced to be able to get into Ignite. And I really want to do a podcast on its own, just talking about my start into karting, because I don't think that there's a lot of people out there that fully know how I got into it, because I feel like people that might have just stumbled across me see me as a guy that's getting benefits from Margay, working for Margay, and just thinking, oh, he's just an employee of Margay and he gets a go-kart. And he's probably got a built engine and knows all the tips and tricks around the go-kart. So it's obvious that he was going to win a race. I mean, it was just like a gimme, right? And it's anything but that. Basically, long story short, I come from a middle-class family, not the disposable income to go out there and do any racing when I was a kid. And then fast forward to when I graduated high school and had my own job and was making my own money. Then I started spending my disposable income racing rental go-karts. And I didn't really have any fees or anything that I was paying. I'm still living with my parents, and I didn't have a car back then, so I didn't have any bills. But, I was still paying phone bill and paying for some of my college as I went through. But all the disposable income that I had went to running rental car races. So then when I got good running rentals and perfected my driving craft, then one of the guys that worked at the Kartplex kind of told me, hey, you should run iDrive because you're pretty fast. So then I ran iDrive. On the first night that I ran iDrive, I got 2 third-place finishes, and I had a really good time. That's when I met the original iDrive Boys crew. That's when I met Austin Russell, Matt Chubb, Colin Predith, and Brendan Lauer. Then we all became really good friends, and it was never about me being a competitive race car driver or anything like that. It was just about having a good time with these newfound friends. And I left high school with a really bitter taste in my mouth because all these friends that I'd had for a really long time, not because we were going different directions in life, but for other personable reasons, I terminated a lot of friendships. So I didn't have a lot of friends, and being able to go to the kart track and have these friends that shared this same passion for racing, it was an outlet for me. It was a stress reliever, and going to college and starting that venture, it was very stressful. So I would go to the kart track, hang out with my friends, and I would get the chance to race. The first championship that I ever competed in, I helped Colin win the kart. I pushed him in that third and final race, and it changed hands. The kart sponsorship for the following year changed hands like 3 or 4 different times in the last lap, and I was able to push Colin to the win, and it was really, really cool. Colin went on and he drove the iDrive Ignite sponsored kart in 2017, and then Matt Chubb retired from iDrive and he bought a kart. So then it was pretty much just down to me and Brendan Lauer and Austin Russell, and me and Lauer threw everything at each other, also being teammates and just having a really good time in 2017. And it really came down to the championship day, and I was just fortunate enough to, I had 2 wins and a second place, and Brendan had 2 second places and a win. And if he had a couple more laps in the second heat race on the championship day, he might have been able to win the championship. But it came down to maybe who the calmer driver was, or maybe even something as simple as just that day. So I was fortunate enough to be able to get the kart for 2018, ran the kart in 2018, and then Greg Dingus heard of the video stuff that I did and known of my videos and knew that he was trying to do some video production stuff for Margay Racing. And so then we were able to pull off a trade deal where I was able to stay in a kart, which I wasn't going to be able to afford to buy at the end of the year. Obviously, being a college student, I'm not going to be able to have that kind of money to be able to go out and buy a go-kart. And he took a chance on me. He took a chance on having me do video stuff and helping me improve my video production skills, that's been probably just as important as my college education, is being able to work with Greg and his expertise and with his equipment and everything like that, and him taking a chance on me and putting me back in the go-kart. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. And the win in Ignite has been a testament of the Kartplex iDrive system. It's been a testament of all the hard work that I've done to try to learn the kart and to learn the racecraft. And it's been a testament to the hard work that Greg's put in and everybody else that's contributed to me. There's definitely a lot of people behind the scenes. All those iDrive guys that I mentioned, Mark Schwagen, Keith Scharf, all the guys at Margay, Kartplex, you name it, all the fantastic sponsors that have backed me over the years. John Knowles at the What's That Like podcast, Labonte Photography, Dexco Home Renovations, Skip Barber, being able to go to Skip Barber and do that race school because of the connections that I had at the Kartplex. When I had crossed the start-finish line, I went back in my mind to my first time in iDrive, my first iDrive win, my iDrive championship win, and then all the struggles that I've had in Ignite. And, that's when the tears came through, and I just started crying because the chance of me being able to get to Ignite and be able to win a race, and especially to go out in the challenge and never touch Whiteland and never, do a challenge race and compete with some of those guys that we raced with and go out there and win, even on a weird deal with the leader spinning out, it was a win nonetheless. So that's kind of why those emotions hit me like they did. And that's why I cried. And I'm sure that if I win at the Kartplex, I think that I've probably come to terms with myself now. I probably won't cry when I get to the Kartplex and win a race, but it's definitely coming sometime this year. And it might come tomorrow, who knows. But it was really cool to be able to get my first ever Ignite win at the oldest kart track in the country. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Like, it was just super, super cool. And then to finish off the story, in the second feature race, they gridded us up by the best lap time in the feature race. I had the second fastest lap time. Eric Fagan going through the field had a screaming fast lap time, I believe, anywhere between 2 to 4 tenths faster than what I had ran. And green flag dropped. Eric Fagan drove away, and I kind of drove away from the guys behind me because they were battling. And Matt Chubb was running third at the time in that race, and there was a little moment where he was catching me for a couple laps, and then that gap didn't change for the rest of the race, and I was able to put on a strong performance for a second place finish. So at the end of the Ignite Challenge Series season opener, I left with my first ever first place trophy and then another second place trophy. And since Eric Fagan left with a first and a fourth, that technically makes me the points leader for the Ignite Challenge Series, which was crazy for me to think about because I was in my mind before going into it, which once again, I don't recommend people thinking like this. You always want to go out and want to win races and want to be the top person, in the series. But I was always looking at Gateway Kartplex being the competitive series that I was going to run, and then the challenge to be kind of like a fun thing where I was able to go and experience new tracks. Now being the points leader, I got to try to buck up and try to be the competitive guy, because it would be really cool to be able to take a nice podium in the points, or even go as far as to, my first time in the challenge series to go out there and win the championship would be really, really awesome. So that's what we're going to try shooting for this year for the 2020 season. So far, the Bobby Krug Racing Team has had a pretty good start to 2020, and I can't thank all the wonderful sponsors and partners that I have behind me that I've already previously mentioned, but I'll mention them again. Margay Racing, Skip Arbor Racing School, 3-2 Designs, Mark Schwagen Photography, What's That Like Podcast, Gateway Kartplex. All those fine folk do a lot for me behind the scenes, and I really, really appreciate all the hard work that they put in. And hopefully within the next couple podcasts, I've been working on some things behind the scenes that I'm hopefully going to be happy to announce here on the ATA Network podcast. So that concludes this episode of the podcast. Once again, I want to remind everybody that if you're not already following me on the social media, check us out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at ATA Network. Find the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Libsyn, and then you can find all those video links at the link dump at bobbykrug.com/podcast. Check out our Spreadshirt, shop.spreadshirt.com/ATA Network. Support the ATA Network podcast, and just support the ATA Network. We're putting out some great content out there on the YouTube channel, and hopefully some more awesome videos to come soon. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for all your support, and I will see you guys in the next episode of the ATA Network podcast.